Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. We start off by celebrating the fact that the Department of Justice has dropped the case against Michael Flynn. We're not going to get deep into the story, but hallelujah, more will be revealed over the weekend, I'm sure, and we'll probably talk about it on Monday. But we got a great show for you today. First of all, we deal with an article about real house arrest. Technology is actually being used as we speak in multiple states around the country to keep you locked in. The same technology they're using for people on house arrest is being used for people who are positive for coronavirus. Scary but true, and we'll get into that. Millennials see old Uncle Joe, according to the latest study done, as just another old politician. They don't see him as the second coming, and a lot of these are Bernie supporters, so we'll get into that. They see Uncle Joe, creepy Uncle Joe, as just being a run-of-the-mill politician, and they're probably right about that. And of course, you knew it was going to happen. We've had doctors rescuing us. We had first responders rescuing us. Of course, President Trump has been trying to rescue the country, but now the lawyers are coming. The lawyers are coming to rescue you from the coronavirus, or at least from your wallet if you're a small business owner, and we'll expand upon that. But we start with a Reuters story, and this story, I got to tell you, the more I read this story, the more frightened I became, and also the more, quite frankly, I can't put it any other way, just flat out pissed off. This just really irks me, and maybe I'm overreacting. We'll see. You can always chime in on whatever Facebook page you're listening to. Of course, you go to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it and share it with others. Hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @John Martin Talks, and my psychic sidekick, Billy Bob Bass here, is @BillyBobBass1. But let me know if you feel the same way, and we'll get on the story and see if this makes your... I'm giving you a warning right now. If you're anything like me, this is going to upset you. To keep COVID-19 patients home, some U.S. states weigh house arrest technology, according to this Reuters story. How do you ensure that someone sick with COVID-19 stays home? Well, one way would be to put something around their ankle. In the old days, what did they do? They put a ball and chain around you, man. I mean, is that what we're coming to right now? Because they're talking about putting ankle bracelets on people just like they do people who are guilty of crimes. The only thing a person is guilty of is potentially being sick from the virus. My question is, are they just going to put it on you if you test positive? Oh, by the way, we encourage you to test, but if you test positive, here's your ball and chain. Take it with you. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. As the United States begins reopening its economy, some state officials are weighing other house arrest monitoring technology, including ankle bracelets or location tracking apps. In other words, your smartphone is so smart that it's going to track you. It's going to follow you around. I mean, I'm having problems right now, and I hesitate to even say the name. I've got an iPhone, and obviously if I say what Siri, I don't know if it'll kick on right now. It kicks on, which is kind of cool. But lately I've been noticing that if I'm just talking to my wife, all of a sudden it'll kick on. So it's a bit scary what's out there. But apparently they've got apps now that can follow you around if you have the coronavirus. I don't know if they put combine that with one of those loudmouth drones that go around and go, you have a fever, go home, that kind of thing. But this could be used to police quarantines imposed on coronavirus carriers. You hear that part? They're not even, it's bad enough that they want to put it on people who are ill, but they're talking about people who are carriers. Keep in mind that according to the stats, a full 80% of people won't really get sick from this. And some of those people won't even show a single symptom. So if you happen to test positive, are they going to test you positive? Oh, by the way, here, we download this app, we can trace you, or here's your ankle bracelet, wear it with pride. I mean, my God, think about this. as we speak, and it might have ticked up higher, but basically the last statistics I saw said that we were a little north of 74,000 deaths. Now, I am not downplaying that at all, because I agree with President Trump. One death is one too many, especially if it's someone you know, care about, and love. So I'm not downplaying the deaths at all. But it's still a relatively low number when you look at the population as a whole. So if they're talking about and actually doing monitoring of people where they literally put you on house arrest simply because you might be a carrier at 74,000 deaths, what would happen if that higher number that got leaked out, about 2 million, 2.5 million, depending on how you look at it before the year's end? I quite frankly don't believe that. But let's assume for the sake of conversation that because we're reopening that we did end up having 2 million deaths. That would be tragic for sure. But if they're willing to put you on house arrest for 74,000 deaths, what would they do if we hit 2 million? Maybe you'd just be lined up and shot. And that has happened before in this country, by the way. We don't talk about it very much. But right here in my great state of Florida, Andrew Jackson, when he was the territorial governor of Florida, actually because of yellow fever, which is a mosquito-borne illness, they put a total lockdown quarantine on the city of Jacksonville and literally shot people who were trying to leave. That is a fact. You can look it up. So it's not like it hadn't been done before, and we seem to be moving in that direction. I don't think I'm over-dramatizing it. You can let me know if you think so. But while the tech has been used sporadically, listen to this paragraph very carefully. While the tech has been used sporadically for U.S. quarantine enforcement over the past few weeks, large-scale rollouts have so far been held back by a big legal question. Can officials impose electronic monitoring without offense or a court order? Well, I think the paragraph answered the question. It's sporadic. It doesn't matter if it's sporadic or not. They're already doing it. So they've already answered their own question. They are already doing it. So who gave them the authority? And apparently, so they're doing it without a court order or without violating a crime. So it's not something on the books. So who is determining this? It sounds like bureaucrats are, which, the deep state, really. It's terrifying. But sporadic quarantine enforcement. What is the question? So they're asking a question here. Let's go back to it. Without an offense or a court order, can you do that? So I don't understand the question. They've already answered it. And a court order? Who needs a court order? I mean, just go back to the video, and we're going to play it here in just a moment, when Tucker Carlson about 2 weeks ago was interviewing the governor of New Jersey that closed down some synagogues and things and basically threatened arrest of people who were meeting Jewish people who were meeting in synagogues. Of course, you had that in Brooklyn where they had a funeral for a rabbi and they bum rushed that with the police and everything else. But I want you to listen to this video from the governor of New Jersey. And if this doesn't frighten you, then you're not truly woke. Let's put it that way. Check it out.
Protects Americans' right, enshrines their right to practice their religion as they see fit and to congregate together, to assemble peacefully. By what authority did you nullify the Bill of Rights in issuing this order? How do you have the power to do that?
That's above my pay grade, Tucker. So I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this. We went to first of all, we looked at the data and the science, and it says
he wasn't
people have to stay away from
think about that. He chuckles. That's above my pay grade. No joke. I don't know what your pay grade is, but it's way high. I know that. Way too high. But he chuckles, oh, the Bill of Rights never even crossed my mind. I mean, and this is not limited to this particular governor. Believe me, there are a lot of little Napoleons running around in the state capitals right now and in your mayoral positions and in our local county commission. Don't even get me started. But they give a couple of examples, and there's multiple of them, but here's a few I just thought jumped out at me. Case in point of states that are already doing this. Hawaii are considering, which considered the sweeping use of GPS-enabled bracelets, ankle bracelets, or smartphone tracking apps to enforce stay-at-home orders given to arriving air passengers. So you fly into Hawaii, and I guess they, instead of giving you the lei, they give you the ankle bracelet. Or they say, let me see your cell phone, sir. Beep, beep, beep. Here, have a nice day. And this is according to Ronald Kochai, the president of the Hawaii State Senate, which we know is all Democrats. Pretty much the politics in Hawaii is 100% Democrat. There may be a few exceptions, but I doubt in this. But so here's an idea. I'm always trying to help, and every now and then I come up with a radical idea. Maybe this would solve the whole problem. Last time I checked, Hawaii was a bit fur out there. I think it's one of them what you call islands, island nation. And I love Hawaii. I've been there once and love to go again. But I don't want to go with coronavirus or a bracelet. But why don't we just send everybody who, instead of worrying about bracelets, let's just send anybody who tests positives to Hawaii, certainly from California. Just send them all out there and just surround the island by an aircraft carrier. How about we do that, man? And then, let me see. I meant to play this video. I think I got it in there. Do we have the warthog video? I think we do. Because my idea is to surround Hawaii with an aircraft carrier and then load it up with warthogs. I think we have that video. Maybe we don't. But a warthog, if you don't know what a warthog is, it's a specialized assault plane. Do we have that video, Billy Bob? Can we play it? I think I put a link in there. Maybe not. Might have messed it up. There we go. Watch this. About do it, don't you think? So we could just have that. You're leaving your house, you're fleeing your house with your ankle bracelet or your app, and we just send the warthogs in and take you out. Now, I will say that I have much respect for our brothers and sisters in arms and the people who actually fly them, and I know they wouldn't do that. But I'm telling you right now, there are political leaders in this country that literally think you should be shot if you come up with this. But Kochai, the Senate president in Hawaii, said that the plan for mass tracking of incoming travelers inspired by similar technology in place in South Korea was put on the back burner after the Hawaii Attorney General offered or raised some questions. Kochai told reporters, this is what they said, and it gives you a little bit of hope. He said, America is America. There are certain rights and freedoms. Now, I would just say to him, don't let that stand in your way. The fact that, you're saying right, we have certain rights and freedoms, but don't let that stand in your way. Nobody else seems to be. Here's a question I keep asking, and no one has really answered this to my satisfaction. Chime in on whatever Facebook you're looking at. Go to YouTube. We're now on YouTube. You can watch us there. Just spell out John Martin Talks. We'd appreciate subscribing and a few looks on there. You can tune in to America's Voice News Network. Download the free app on your iPhone or your Android. Hopefully it won't have the tracking app. And we're on America's Voice News Facebook page. Howdy, how are y'all doing? We're also on their network, streaming on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. We're now worldwide, universal-wide on Dish Network Channel 219 and the Pluto channel. So check it out. But so tell me, no one has really answered this question. And I know, believe me, I am 100% for Donald Trump. But when I think he's wrong, I'll say it. And in this case, I think in some extent he is wrong about this shutdown. And let me back up a minute. I am not saying that some of the social distancing, the hand washing, I'm not saying we don't take this virus serious. I've been taking it serious myself. But I want to know just what Tucker Carlson asked that governor of New Jersey. Who gave them the authority and the right to actually shut us down in the first place? Now, they seem to have the permission. We have to seek their permission, literally, to come back. But who gave them the ability to shut us down in the first place? I still don't see that in the Constitution, short of martial law, which hasn't been enacted, right? Similar ideas have already been executed in a few other states, this tracking devices, this basically house arrest. Let me give you a couple of examples. 7 people who broke quarantine rules in Louisville, Kentucky were court-ordered to wear GPS tracking devices manufactured by Colorado-based Scram Systems, according to Amy Hess, the city's chief of public services. So here you have bureaucrats putting people on house arrest. She told Reuters that while she would rather not have to use the devices at all, state law permitted the imposition of home confinement to protect public health. Oh yeah? That don't make it constitutional. Just because it's a law on the books in your community, you take an oath. I don't know about these bureaucrats, but when you're elected, I was elected to mayor of my little city, and I had to take an oath to protect of enemies both foreign and domestic for not only the U.S. Constitution, but the Florida state Constitution, and which the U.S. Constitution usurps that, right? It definitely overpowers it. So, just because it's a law, this is something people don't seem to understand. Just because it's a law doesn't mean it's constitutional. We have gotten, and I've been saying this for weeks now, really for years, we are post-constitutional right now. And that really, if you want to know why they're doing what they're doing, that explains a lot of it right there. But she says, we don't take away freedoms but at the same time, we have a pandemic. So I guess that explains everything. We don't take away your freedom, but we got a pandemic. So the Constitution, I guess it could be used as spare toilet paper or kindling. You could light the dadgum thing on fire, because the reality is, and I'm not disrespecting the Constitution, I'm warning you, we are literally burning the U.S. Constitution as we speak. In West Virginia's capital, Charleston, Kennesaw, Sheriff Mike Rutherford told Reuters his force had leased 10 additional monitoring ankle bracelets from CEO Group Incorporated at the outset of the epidemic. Now keep in mind, this is West Virginia, one of the reddest states in America, right? Although they still elect that crazy senator. He said that they got these at the outset of the epidemic, and I love this statement, although I actually hate it. It scares me. He said, to be on the safe side. So just in case, we're not planning on using them, we don't know if we're, but just to be on the safe side in case you yahoos out there start running the streets, we just did it on the safe. He said, although they so far have sat on the shelf. So to be on the safe side. That, I thought when I first read that, I'm a big student of history. I majored in history at the University of Florida, which is empty right now, by the way, but I love my Gators. Hope they'll come back. But I'm very fascinated with American history. And so I'm not saying I'm an expert at it, but I know one or two things. I can read, write, and spell a little bit. And I thought about this guy that has a similar name to me. His name is John Hancock. Do you remember Mr. Hancock? Look at that meme right there. Mr. Hancock was the one, and there's even a saying, let me put my John Hancock on it, because he wanted, when he signed the Declaration of Independence, he basically said what that meme said. He wants King George to know exactly who. So this idea that we're going to play it safe, our country would, if we played it safe, we wouldn't be here. I don't know what would be happening here, but the grand experiment of the United States of America would never have happened if we played it safe. Let me just tell you, snowflakes out there, you can't be free and play it safe. It's not possible. It's always been dangerous to leave the cave. There's never been a time in our history where there hadn't been some form of saber-toothed tiger out there. It might be China, but some form or fashion, it's never, ever been safe to leave the cave. And freedom, ladies and gentlemen, I wear this hat when I go fishing all the time. Maybe I'll bring it in next week. Freedom is not free. It never has been, and it never will be. But below here is the best example of all of these different states that are using it. And I'm sorry to say that it comes out of the state of Arkansas. It's actually not the state itself, but one of these companies that is based in Arkansas. Listen to this. Chris Keaton of Arkansas-based eCell said he had recently been approached by a state agency that wanted to adapt his detainee tracking smartphone app for quarantine enforcement. And this is the part I love. He said the changes the agency requested were purely cosmetic. So they wanted it to function and track you, including swapping out the word client in eCell's term of arrestees with the word patient. He said they just wanted to reskin our app. So for those of you who are worried about your ankle bracelet or your app not being designer friendly, you don't have to worry. They're going to design one just special for you. Might even have you, and maybe they'll just do a barcode on you. How about that? So I'm looking at this, I'm thinking the designer app or designer bracelet. So is it designer tyranny? Is that what this is? Or is it tyranny by design? I'm just reporting this stuff. You kind of decide. Other governments are weighing similar technology, said Margaretto Shadtrack, who said he was in talks with half a dozen countries in Asia, Europe, and Latin America. So why should we be any different, right? I mean, why don't we pattern ourselves over Asia and Latin America and a lot of freedom around Asia and Latin America and everything, right? Why should we be any different? And let me tell you, the combination of this is a Bush-Obama dream come through. Because let me tell you, the New World Order under Bush Sr. is now met Obama's fundamentally changing America. Because I'm telling you, if we're going to be tracked everywhere we go, if they can literally take you just because you test positive, that you would be tracked and being shuttered at your home, man, then we have, in fact, fundamentally changed America. Why don't they just, I was thinking about the AIDS epidemic. Why don't they just tattoo across people's heads, I have AIDS, so we would know? I mean, it's the same kind of thing, right? You're going to be stigmatized, man. But a country, this is something I say pretty regular, and I hadn't said it in a while. I think, maybe I might have said it last week. One of the things that of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. One of the things that really troubles me is, we have an all-volunteer army, and I'm not downplaying them at all. Matter of fact, the men and women that serve this country are the best of the best. But here's what concerns me about an all-volunteer army, one of my concerns. What if we become a country that's not worth fighting for? What if we become a country that is simply not worth fighting for? And if we're going to be locking people up who have committed no crime whatsoever, that is what we are becoming. And what's this idea of fear and death all the time? I mean, I heard Rush Limbaugh talk about this, about progressive Democrats. He made a great point. They seem to fear death completely. That explains like the global warming. We only got 10 years, 12 years to live and all that kind of stuff. I fear death myself. Let me back up. I don't fear death per se. Rush Limbaugh made a point. He said that conservatives don't think about death. I talked a little bit about this yesterday, in my talk about me being recovery, being 32 years clean and sober. I just say it for perspective. I think about death, but when I think about it, it's not in fear, it's in gratitude, man. I'm living on borrowed time, brother. I'm living on God's grace. I think in a certain extent we all are. So to me, when I think about death at all, I actually think about how good a life I've had. And the only thing I fear about death is a life not well lived. And that brings me to John Hancock again. Check out this meme right here. We don't have that one? Okay. John Hancock basically talked about, similar to Patrick Henry, he said that in a sense, we got to pay a price for freedom. We can look that up later. I'll post it on my Facebook site. We had a technical difficulty. The bottom line question, do we have a choice about all of this? I think we do, but I think that time is running out. And certainly if we don't elect Donald Trump in 2020, they're just going to take that as carte blanche to just either ignore the Constitution or literally destroy it. So we got a choice, but we're on the clock, the way I see it. All right, we're going to move along here. We're going to talk about a Huffington Post story. Now, I don't use the Huffington Post very often. I do use publications that you probably might question. Why is he reading them? Well, one of the reasons is public service, so you don't have to. But I think it's good to see what the enemy is thinking, and you can see that from the Huffington Post because they're absolutely the enemy of freedom. Ain't no doubt about it. Just another politician. Joe Biden is a blank slate for young voters. So Biden, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I told you how to check out our podcast, but Biden's got a problem with young voters, especially the millennials that supported Mr. Bernie Sanders. Young voters mostly see presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden as a standard issue carrier politician, and that's dampening their enthusiasm for a candidate they know little about. According to a new report from a major Democratic advocacy group released on Thursday, and this is the Tom Steyer group, by the way, and we'll talk a little more about that in a second. But saying that, so let me get this straight. So young people are looking at Joe and they just see that he's just your run-of-the-mill old establishment politician. Well, I wonder why. I can't imagine any reason why they would think that. The reason is because they're absolutely right. That is exactly who Joe Biden is, man. He is your typical run-of-the-mill socialist Democrat. I'm telling you, he is. The new report prepared by Democratic pollsters Global Strategy Group for the youth outreach organization Next Gen America, that's Steyer's group, he's going to spend like $45 million on this, something like that, is based on online focus groups and discussions held last month with voters aged 18 to 34. 11 presidential and Senate battleground states. So that's what he did this. The participants, all either Democrats or independents, so it wasn't any Republicans, were skeptical of Biden. Many had previously been enthusiastic backers of the one and only Bernard Sanders. And I keep bringing this up to you snowflakes that supported Bernie. And you should be pissed off about this. They talk every day now. We talked about this yesterday some. Every day now you hear about replacing Joe Biden. But the one name you never hear about replacing Joe Biden with is Bernie Sanders. And I'm not pushing for Bernie Sanders. I'm glad he didn't win. But and I'm wanting Trump to win. But the reality is Bernie Sanders, if there's a second place person that would be the one that the voters chose to replace Joe Biden, if you pull him out, it would be Bernie Sanders. But his name intentionally never comes up, man. So I guess these young people just are, Joe isn't giving them the burning sensation. You know, Joe's just not burning. He's not doing that hunka burning love with these young people that Bernie did. And as I told you, Next Gen is run by Tom Steyer, and I was right when I look at this. 45 million they're talking about. It's pretty good being a billionaire, I guess. You know, they talk about the Republican Party being the party of the millionaires, and that may or may not be true, but certainly the Democratic Party is the party of the billionaires. Said Ben Wessel, Next Generation's America's executive director. He's talking about these young millennials. He said, these people don't know much about Biden. Well, I can tell you that's probably a good thing, because the more you know about Biden, the less you're going to like him. They don't know much about who he is or what he's for, even if they're political animals. Well, they look at Biden and they're mainly looking at, what's that coming out of his eye, and a tooth is loose or something like that. They think of him as a generic Democrat, and he is. He is. You know, what do they do, those ballots where just they have nameless Democrat? Well, that's Joe. A typical politician. It's important because we can change their minds. This is the Wessel fellow, the head of this group, the executive director of Steyer's group. The flip side is that the generic Democratic politician is super unpopular category with these people. So they don't know Joe. Well, let me help them. Can we play video still? Are we able to play video, Billy Bob?
Hey, you know, I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap.
So
I love kids jumping on my lap.
You millennials, Joe loves you jumping in his lap. You young chilling out there chilling. And roaches, he's still not explained that term. Now, I think it's a racist term, but he still hasn't explained it. So I'm always trying to help here. If you're new to the show, one of the things we do is we're always trying to help. And I'm trying to help these Bernieites, these Bernie bros, and these millennials. You want to know Joe? Just watch Joe. You'll know all you need to know. Said a white millennial who had almost no enthusiasm for former vice president. Well, who has enthusiasm? First of all, is there anyone out there that is actually enthusiastic for Joe Biden? I mean, I challenge you. Find me someone. If you're enthusiastic for Joe Biden, let me know, because I can't find them. Now, whenever I challenge someone about Joe Biden, they don't come back with enthusiasm for Joe Biden. They come out with anger against Donald Trump. So I get it. Trump derangement syndrome is real, and there's a tremendous amount of passion of people who just hate Donald Trump. There's no question about it. But I haven't seen any passion for Joe Biden. So he said, while white millennial had almost no enthusiasm for former vice president, this millennial said, nothing will fundamentally change. He has nothing, talking about Biden, nothing to offer, and voting for him would be an endorsement of the disgusting rigged process that got him the ticket. He's absolutely right, except there is something that would change. Lean in, snowflakes. If you don't get anything else out of the show, get this. This is one of those moments. There's two things that will absolutely change if Donald Trump is defeated and Joe Biden is the next president. One is you're going to pay higher taxes. That is a given. But the good news, I guess, on the flip side is you might not have to pay those higher taxes because you're not likely to have a job. Your parents will have to pay higher taxes for the basement you're living in. But so some things will change there. Other voters brought up concerns about Tara Reade's accusation that Joe Biden had sexually assaulted her. Well, you know, I don't blame them for feeling that way. I mean, when you have old people like the Sea Hag Pelosi saying, you know, that's just Joe being Joe when questioned about her endorsement of Joe Biden, she said, well, that was just, I believe Joe Biden, that's just Joe being Joe. If you're a young woman out there, man, doesn't that attitude frighten you? I'm not a young woman, and I can tell you, it frightens me to think that we have elected leaders that so casually disregard sexual assault. I don't. The strongest argument to vote for Biden might be who he's running against, Trump derangement syndrome. The young voters were, by this study, the young voters were almost unanimous in their disdain for Trump. Critical of every, well, that's because they've been lied to. They've been told America sucks since before they were born. But critical of everything from his handling of immigration and customs enforcement to the GOP's 2017 tax cuts. See, it used to be, if you think that the tax cuts were for the wealthy, and of course, you know, people got over $1,000 in average tax cut. Of course, Nancy Pelosi called those crumbs. But see, it used to be when we looked at someone who was wealthy, we said, man, it's probably pretty good to be rich. Maybe I should try it. Now it's like we want to bring them down, man. That's communist thinking, by the way. And in communist countries, only the powerful are rich. Everybody else is equal for sure, equally poor, that is. But a simple comparison of Biden, Sanders, and Trump's stances on key issues was effective, according to this. Well, let me just sum this thing up. Let me check the time. We're doing pretty good here. Let me just sum this thing up for you, ladies and gentlemen. This election, now anything can change and happen. If we get 2 million deaths, who knows? But this election is not about Joe Biden. I hate to tell you millennials, I hate to tell you Bernie bros out there, this election is not about Joe Biden. And you better hope it's not. Because if it is about Joe Biden, he can't win. Because if people actually look at the real Joe Biden, I'm telling you, in Florida, and I don't say this with any relish because, you know, I work with older people all the time. My wife is a home health care nurse. We have an agency that we run together. And so I took care of my 98-year-old mother for about the last 7 years. She just passed last year, unfortunately. But so we don't throw old people away in my family. We just don't. So I'm down with this, with taking care of people. But if Joe Biden, he couldn't even get a driver's license in the state of Florida. I'm telling you right now, answer this question honestly. Would you put Joe Biden behind the wheel of the car with your kids in it? Would you get in the car with Joe Biden and let him drive you anywhere? And not even talking about the little sniff you might get. I mean, I just don't think the man is together there enough to drive. But this election is not about Joe Biden. Trump derangement syndrome is what it's really about, and it's about two things, and Biden is not part of it. One, it's about how the American people feel about Donald Trump. You know, he made America great again, and his new slogan is, guess what? Make America great again, because we did it once, we can do it twice. Who is better to turn this economy around than Donald Trump? Really, anybody on the planet? I'm listening. I just don't, it's definitely not Joe Biden. But this election is about how the people feel about Donald Trump come November. And the level of the virus, but the real virus is the level of Trump derangement syndrome. How bad will that be? And there's no vaccine other than truth. We're a vaccine for Trump derangement syndrome, so you should tune in every day. But keep this in mind, you Trump supporters out there, you MAGA hat wearing sons of gun. You know, I don't know if I'm a basket of deplorable. Me and Billy Bob go back and forth. He's pretty much affirmed a basket of deplorable. You know, he got caught in that net. I think I'm more like Biden said, I'm a dreg of society. I really kind of feel more draggish. I channel a little bit. There's one thing about it. I can say what I want. One day I'm a deplorable, but most of the time I'm a little bit draggish. But I tell you, my dregs and deplorables out there, I want to issue this one warning because I see people posting on my Facebook all the time, and I love it. Trump 2020, Trump landslide. Believe me, I am with you. But I'm going to keep repeating these couple of facts right through the election because I think they're critical. One is the Democrats start out the gate. It don't matter who it is. Joe Biden, it could be a glass of water like Nancy Pelosi said the other day or a while back talking about Ocasio-Cortez winning in that district. And oh, by the way, somebody chimed in on Facebook from yesterday's show and said I was promoting Ocasio-Cortez. I was not. I simply said that you have to give her credit for how she outworked and out-campaigned a 26-year veteran. I give credit where credit is due. I do not agree with Ocasio-Cortez at all. In fact, I call the, what do they call them, the squad, hadn't talked about them. They've been out of the news a little bit lately. I call them the Twitter twats myself. I think it's more descriptive. I don't care much for Ocasio-Cortez at all. But the Democrats start out with a heck of an advantage on day one come the November election. They're going to win California. They're going to win Illinois. They're going to win Massachusetts, and they're going to win the state of New York. Now, I'm not saying we can't win some House seats and all that kind of stuff there, but we're not going to win the presidency going through those states unless some miracle changes, which I just don't see happening. And if you tell me how it could happen, let me know, because I'd love to see it happen. But they start out with that advantage. So President Trump or any Republican is going to have to kind of thread a needle. I believe he can do it. But here's the second point. I trust Donald Trump that he is going to work his proverbial behind off. He's going to work. He worked harder than anybody I've ever seen in 2016. And I have no doubt that, because he was already doing it before this coronavirus, that he's going to work just as hard, if not harder, in 2020. And the Republican Party is behind him a lot more, the establishment side, than they were before. So I'm not worried about Donald Trump doing his part. But I go back to something my old daddy used to tell me, and the old cracker logic is good because it's true. And he used to say you got to campaign like you're 2 votes behind, and the next 2 people you see are going to put you over the top. So if you're chiming in Trump 2020, I'm with you. But you got to work. You got to talk to your neighbors. You got to tell them, because a lot of people, or some people who might have voted for Trump before, who aren't like MAGA hat people, they are worried about the future of the country, and we need to keep them in the fold. And I think only neighbor to neighbor can we really do that. All right, we got a few minutes left, just a long enough time to get into this last story here, and that is lawyers to the rescue. Now, let me say before I get into this story, I personally don't have anything in particular against lawyers, and then there's plenty of good lawyer jokes for a reason. I got friends that are lawyers. It is peculiar that a vast majority of lawyers, especially the Trial Lawyers Association, are liberal progressives. They always back the Republican Party. One of the most interesting things to see in the state legislature is they usually have the lawyer day up there, because every group has their day, and the doctors are at the same time. And so you see these lawyers and the doctors, and you can tell they're like pit bulls against each other. Anyway, I regress. Sometimes I do that. Let's get, Billy Bob tells me to get back on track, so let's do it. This is a Reuters story. Fight brews in Congress over Republican push to protect business from coronavirus lawsuits. Republicans and business groups warn that companies could face a flood of litigation from employees and customers who become infected after operations resume. So what they're talking about is, as these businesses resume and people get infected and all, it's just when businesses are at their weakest, they could be hit by lawsuits. You know good and well they're going to line up for this stuff. It is absolutely a fact. It is guaranteed, like death and taxes, that the lawyers will be there. I really believe we'll hear somewhere down the line that hand sanitizing causes cancer, that, it causes your hand to shrivel up or something like that. What is that one meme out there? I rubbed so much hand sanitizer and soap on it, I saw the answers to my 5th grade English test on there. But plaintiff advocates counter that employees are protected by legal barriers, including the difficulty of demonstrating where COVID infections occur. Well, if you're a Republican and you own a business, it occurred there. I guarantee it, man. Lawyers to the rescue, never fear. Mitch McConnell has made a bill protecting employers a top priority as Congress weighs what steps to take to address pandemic that has killed more, and this says 71. I think the number's actually up to 74 now. Americans thrown more than 26 million out of work. Think about that, man. Those are Great Depression numbers. So I thought about this. What is the difference between a lawyer and a buzzard? It's what we call them here in Florida, at least country. It's a vulture, basically. What is the difference, man? Well, they both fly around waiting for your carcass to die, but buzzards tend to have more patience than lawyers. But it reminded me of this old poster my brother used to have on his wall. There you go. Patience, my you-know-what. I'm going to kill something. So it's going to be a competition between the buzzers and the lawyers for who actually puts us out, who puts us to death. Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, I don't know if you remember this guy. He was on the judiciary hearing with Kavanaugh, and what a piece of work this dude was. But I'm not surprised he said the president is forcing workers back into unsafe plants, and Mitch McConnell is trying to slam the courthouse door on the workers who get hurt. So according to White House here, the White House, President Trump is forcing people back to work, man. I can tell you, I've been coming in the last few days since it opened up in Florida, and from what I can see in Florida, I don't know about where you are, at least what I'm watching on video, but people seem to be eager to get to work, man. I don't really know anybody. I'm sure there are people who are being paid not to work, who are reluctant to go back for whatever reason, and I'm not saying that if you don't feel safe, I get that. My only thing is I keep telling you, it's never been safe to leave the cave. Freedom's not free, and we're going to have to assess our own risk. So if you don't feel comfortable, that is on you. But don't assess my risk. Assess your own risk. That's what I'm saying. But workers are being forced back. I think what I see, people are just chomping at the bit to get back and slam the courthouse door. Well, heck, we talked about how the Democrats are putting people in jail, man. Putting people on literal house arrest. And what about the lady that tried to open up her beautician shop out there in Texas and got put 7 days in jail? We talked about that earlier in the week, and I heard her GoFundMe page is over $500,000. Wow, man. If we played any role in that, I'm totally grateful for that. But the Texas governor has now basically given her a stay of execution, from what I'm understanding. So there is some light at the end of the tunnel on that. But we have some decisions to make, ladies and gentlemen. We have to understand, I mean, when it comes to these lawyers, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. I'm hoping that we get some protection from people, because I'm very concerned that businesses are going to come out of this at their weakest point, and these lawyers are going to jump in there and hammer them. And it's maybe good for some businesses, but for overall lawyers' business, but for overall, it's going to be very bad for the economy of the great United States of Florida. I mean, United States of America and the state of Florida. But we've got some choices to make. As I said at the top of the show, the first article, do we have a choice? I think we do. But I think the clock is literally ticking on that choice. Because if we don't reelect, in my opinion, Donald Trump, I don't care who the Democrat is, we're going to throw the Constitution out. And the worst part about it is ignoring. Is there anyone out there that believes that our Bill of Rights, our sacred Bill of Rights, our inalienable rights, God-given rights, will be protected if Democrats are in charge? Because nothing if one thing came out of the 2020 election to this point, and the Democrats, is they don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in the greatness of America. Their mantra has become, America sucks. It's always sucked. It sucks for more than others. And if you elect us, we will make sure it sucks for everybody equally. Keep in mind, they're for open borders and a welfare state. How does that look right now under coronavirus? Borders matter. They're literally for making it, decriminalizing it to get on the board. They're letting prisoners out of jail while they're putting you on house arrest and a lady opening her business under arrest. President Trump, they said, was not above the law back during the impeachment, but he's not beneath the law either. And they tried to put him there. They said in the Kavanaugh hearings that you're guilty and you have to prove you're innocent, which to me is if that becomes the standard, is the end of the United States. And they said you could literally be tried in the dungeons of the Capitol without facing your accusers. So you don't have a right. All these constitutional rights have been thrown out the window before Corona, and they're just being accelerated now. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. I'm going to pray for your family. You pray for mine. Guess what's happening this weekend, baby? If you've been watching the show, you know how great this is. I'm going fishing for the first time since this shutdown. I'm going back on this party boat. I take videos. I'll give you a report sometime next week, man. So I'm truly blessed. I do live by the grace of God. But as I say each and every day, I wish you a great and joyous weekend. As I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.